Okay, let's just start in child's pose then. Make sure the camera's good. So knees wide spread, arms extended forward. Plant that forehead down on the mat and just start to breathe in and out. Letting that air swirl in the back of your throat. You inhale and exhale, trying to create an ocean-like sound. You might pick something you want to focus on in your practice today. Take a couple more breaths here. Eventually making your way up to a tabletop position. Wrists underneath the shoulders, knees underneath the hips. Drop that belly down, pulling the chest through. Inhale, round through the back, drawing that belly button up and in. Exhale, drop the belly. Inhale, round through the back. Tuck that chin in. Exhale, drop the belly. You may take a few of these at your own pace. Connect each movement to your breath. You might even venture off from this position, taking some big hip swivels if that feels good. Just doing whatever feels good. Loosening up that spine. You might stay in that traditional cat-cow, totally fine. Just take a few more moments here. Just loosening up that body. Eventually coming back to that child's pose, knees wide spread, arms extended forward, melt that chest down. Take a few cleansing breaths here. Just clearing the mind. Maybe bringing your focus back to whatever you'd like to focus on today. Eventually, we're going to tuck those toes, sending the hips up to a high plank position, round through that upper back, drawing that belly button up and in. Really dome through that upper back. Feeling really strong here. Might take some rocks forward and back, eventually shifting all the way forward on the toes. Exhale, chaturanga down, keeping those elbows in towards the body. Inhale to up dog. Exhale, take it to your first downward dog. You might pedal your feet out here. Just loosening up that body. Eventually finding some length in that long, flat back. Sending that tailbone all the way up to the sky. Next inhale, reach that right leg up to the sky, bringing it nose to knee here. Really round through that back, drawing that foot leg in, and then plant the knee down. Stack that right hand down and open up to the left, just to a supported side plank. You might take that left arm up and over. Just might need some length here. Take a couple breaths. Maybe you take some arm circles if that feels good. Taking a couple more breaths. Finding some length. And then come into a gated child's pose. Sit on that right heel, extending to that left foot, folding forward, gated child's pose here. You might rest your forehead on the mat. Taking a couple breaths here. Eventually making your way back up to a high plank position. Draw that right foot back. Come into a downward dog. You might pedal up those feet there, adjusting them. Finding some length eventually. Long flat back here. Totally fine to keep that bend in your knees as long as we have that long flat back. Take a couple breaths here. Eventually extending that left leg up to the sky now. Bring it forward, nose to knee. Really doming through that back. Draw that leg in. And then release the leg down, planting that left hand, opening up to the right now. You might gaze up underneath that right tricep. Finding some length through your toes all the way out to the arm. You might even take some circles here with that arm if that feels good. Taking a couple more breaths here. Eventually sitting on that left heel, coming to a gated child's pose. Keep that right leg extended. Forward fold over that leg. Taking a couple breaths here. Take a couple more breaths. Eventually coming forward, take that foot back, high plank. Exhale, chaturanga. Inhale to an up dog. Take those shoulders up and back. Really draw that belly button up and in. And then take it back to a child's pose. Knees widespread, arms extended forward. Take a few breaths here. Eventually swim forward to a sphinx position, planting those forearms down on the mat. Take those shoulders up and back. You might even decide to drop the chin. Taking some head rolls here. Eventually, we're going to move all the way down to our stomachs, extending those arms up to a T. Take that left leg up and over. Letting the right shoulder get a good stretch. Let that left hip hang heavy. Taking some cleansing breaths here. Take a couple more breaths. And eventually coming back to that T. Keep the left arm out, rolling that right leg up and over. Giving the left shoulder a good stretch now. Take some nice deep breaths here in this posture. And eventually coming all the way back to center. Plant those hands down, shifting back to a child's pose, knees widespread, arms extended forward. Take a couple breaths here. When you're ready, we're going to tuck those toes, come back to a high plank position. Really lift through that upper back, drawing that belly button up and in. Maybe taking a few rocks forward and back. Really get that breath going here. Taking some strong inhales and exhales. Eventually planting that through that left hand. We're going to open up to the right side plank here. Keep that right foot over the left. Maybe you even take that gaze up to your right thumb. Option to float that right leg up in the air if you'd like, or keep it down on the ground, keeping those hips lifted. Take a few more breaths here. Eventually planting that right hand down. Switching to that side, opening up to the left now. You might gaze up at that left thumb. Really keeping those left hips lifted. Breathing through this posture. Planting that hand down, send the hips tall. Find some length in that downward dog position. Eventually walking the hands all the way back. Come to a Malasana squat, taking the feet a little bit wider, toes pointed out. Bring those hands to heart center, lifting through the chest. Maybe even closing the eyes. Maybe remembering that intention you set for your practice. You might plant that left hand down, extending up to the right. Maybe even taking your gaze up there, just a gentle twist. And then reversing it, plant that right hand if you'd like, extending to the left. Eventually coming back to center, plant those hands in front of you, heart center, and then take those knees out. Lift into the chest, close those eyes, and take a few more breaths here. Eventually, we're going to plant those hands down. Lifting the hips, just coming to a gentle forward fold. You might keep a slight bend in your knees, letting that head hang heavy here. Shaking your head, yes. Shaking it, no. Just take a couple breaths. You might drop back into that Malasa squat. Eventually, walking those hands back out. Come to a high plank position. Taking one more vinyasa as you shift forward on those toes. Exhale, chaturanga down, keeping those elbows in. Inhaling to an up dog. Exhale, take it back, downward dog. On your next inhale, reach that right leg up, bringing it forward, pigeon pose. You might try and line that shin up with the top of your mat. Eventually inhaling up. Exhale, forward fold here. Letting that breath stay steady. Just focusing on the breath. You might give your breath a color as it enters the body and swirls to areas that need to release tension. Just gently releasing. Eventually, you're going to plant your hands, stepping your foot back, coming back to that downward dog. You might pedal out those feet. Eventually, inhaling, extend to that left leg now, bringing it forward to a pigeon on this opposite side. Taking a moment to inhale, lengthen up, and exhale, forward fold here. Once again, letting your breath enter the body, staying consistent. Your breath might have a color to it as it swirls around and gently releases tension. Take a couple more breaths. Eventually making your way back up. Bring that leg around, dropping onto your back. You might hug your knees into your chest, rocking side to side. Maybe even extending out to a happy baby, grabbing the outer edges of your feet. You might continue this rock. Eventually plant those feet right by your hips. And we're going to stack the right foot over the left thighs, coming to a figure four position. You're going to reach underneath the left leg, pulling it in. So giving that right hip a good stretch in this reclined pigeon. Take a couple breaths here. Eventually planting that left foot. Might let that right leg fall to the left side, stacking that foot on the ground, sending the right knee up to the sky. So a little gentle twist in this reclined pigeon. Taking a few breaths here. Eventually making your way back up. Plant that right foot, stacking the left foot on top of the thigh now, reaching through to a reclined pigeon on this left side. Taking a few breaths here. Pulling with that right, with those hands underneath that right hamstring. Eventually, you're going to plant that foot, sending the legs over to the right now. Stack the foot, sending the knee up to the sky. Just a gentle twist in this reclined pigeon. You might let your arms just fall out to the sides. Just taking a couple breaths here. Your way back to center, maybe taking a final happy baby if that feels good. Maybe you bring your knees into your chest if you'd prefer that. Just rocking out that spine, preparing for that final pose. When you're ready, extend your legs out, bring your palms up to the sky. Tuck those shoulder blades underneath your back. Just begin to relax here. You might imagine yourself floating on water, feeling weightless. In your final pose, Shavasana. to bring your awareness back. Maybe taking some big inhales and exhales. You might start to make small movements, wiggling your fingers and toes. Maybe moving your arms and legs. Eventually roll into your favorite side whenever you're ready, cradling your head with your arm. Take a few moments here. Eventually coming up to a seated position. Bringing your hands to heart center. You might close your eyes. Take a big inhale through the nose. Exhale out the mouth. Once again, inhaling. Take an exhale out the mouth. One more final inhale. Exhale, release. Such an awesome job today, guys. Have a wonderful day. Namaste. So good to see you guys.